Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Developer Experience Office Hours here on OpenShift TV. I am Chris Short, executive producer of OpenShift TV and technical marketing manager here at Red Hat. I'm joined by two of my favorite Red Hatters today from our developer evangelism team, Ryan Jarvinen and the one and only Natalie Vento. How are y'all doing today?
Hey, doing great. Yeah, as usual, we would love to hear your thoughts on topics for the show. If you have anything you're super interested in seeing, definitely mention it in chat. We also have a feedback form, which I may as well paste a link. I got a new shortened URL for the feedback form. Let me I'm going to join. I'm not even in chat yet. Let me join the chat here and topics. Let's see, topics. Welcome. All right, I just posted a link to bit.ly/devexp feedback camel case capitalization. So capital DEV, capital EXP, capital F for feedback. Give that link a click and let us know what topics you'd like to see here in the developer experience office hours. Natalie, great to have you here today to help cover today's topic. We're going to go through some serverless scenarios from learn.openshift.com. Feel free to drop questions on relative to that topic or other topics into chat, and we'll do our best to try to handle it for you.
That's pretty interesting. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to join you in this developer experience office hour. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Here it's kind of 5 p.m. I guess the hours change from your side. Ryan, I think it's 8 a.m. from your side. So
yeah, early.
Hey, everyone.
Yeah, no, it's 11 here and it still feels early for me sometimes. So yeah. So we're here to talk about, and I want to, hang on, two things. Ryan, I can make you an even fancier shortened link. We can talk after the show.
Oh, cool. Yeah, let's do that.
And then I want to point out that Joel Lord is in the house, everybody. So if you got your front end framework questions, like tee those up. Now's a good time for that. Excellent. And then also shout out to JP Dade, who has been in firmware hell for the past 14 hours. Thank you for joining us. I hope this is a good break for you. So what are we here to talk about, folks?
Yeah, so
right. What is this serverless thing?
That's the main topic today, and so I personally have tried to scope in my area of focus on Kubernetes. And a couple of years ago, I had a lot of folks talking a lot about Istio to me and being like, "Hey, Istio's the hot new thing. You really got to get up to speed on Istio to see the future of Kubernetes." And then I also heard from other folks, Istio's maybe not fully stable. Like there's good pieces to it, but there's also areas that are maybe still evolving, right?
Like any good project, yes.
Like any good project. So I kind of tried to focus down on just what is relevant and useful to me under my kind of traditional developer scope of responsibilities, and tried to take a look at the Kubernetes API and figure out what are the minimum number of resource types that I need to be informed of. And so deployments was one that I'm like, okay, I need to deploy a container. I need to know what deployments are. I need to route traffic to the container. I need to know what services are, right? Yep. And then other higher order concepts that were optional or not always included, I kind of was like, I'm going to gloss over this until it becomes more of a mainstream, usable for everyone type of topic. And so Knative was kind of in that group of things where I was like, unless it is something that's applicable towards a major proportion of the audience, maybe I can skip it short term. Well, I have recently come up to speed, well, partially up to speed on Knative as a field of developer facing work. And I think there is a lot in there that really extends the experience for developers. So there's new resource types that you're going to need to learn. Also, a lot of these resource types may not be available on a stock cluster. So you may need to install Knative or an operator in order to get those abstractions into your cluster. So
Right.
just some basics there. Yeah,
But
go ahead.
also another, just to add, in addition to that, also another methodologic approach, right? So with serverless, we have we have this function that exists for a limited time. So we are in charge of taking the control on the input and taking then the value from the output. But all those functions are just best effort executed. So it's another approach. So we can execute the multiple function, multiple application in these serverless ways in parallel. But we don't expect too much reliability. We don't expect to do real time for this stuff, right? So it's also another approach. Let's say on demand, reacting to events, but also in a kind of best effort. So it's not the solution for any use case, but it's really, really important in modern workloads. Like if you think about IoT or multi-cloud, it's terrific important to deal with framework and pattern like in serverless.
Yeah, and we have for folks who are looking to get up to speed on this topic, I have, let me see where I have a link to a past OpenShift Commons video that I'm going to drop into chat. So there was a OpenShift Commons briefing on the Knative project featuring a couple of the upstream contributors, Paul Morey, Roland Huss, Matt Moore, and Scott Nichols. So a kind of a cross-company collaboration. A lot of folks, not just Red Hatters, on this Commons briefing. I just watched part of that this morning. Really good content there if you're looking to get up to speed on Knative and learn kind of what's involved. I definitely recommend taking a look at that video.
Absolutely. So JP Dade brings up a great kind of like conceptual question for us in chat. Like Knative is serverless. What is the OpenShift or Kubernetes comparison to Lambda? Does OCP have a FAS function or function as a service feature? And that's kind of like a good line of understanding, right? Like FAS is and isn't serverless all at kind of the same time, right? Like Ryan, or Natalia, you want to dive into that a little bit, or whoever wants to dive into that, feel free.
Yeah. If no one else is going to jump, I'll.
I mean, Natalia unmuted, so.
Go for it, Natalia.
Go for it, Natalia.
No, I was just joining the discussion.
Okay, go ahead, Ryan. Yeah. Sorry.
I was just going to say this video totally covers this topic, and I would not have been able to elaborate the differences between functions as a service and Knative serving if it were not for this OpenShift Commons briefing. I mean, I'm sure I could have found this information in plenty of other places, but they do a great job of kind of splitting, what belongs on this side of the line on the functions as a service and what belongs on the Knative serving side of the equation. And so based on that video, we'll attempt to summarize for that group, but I think the difference was Knative serving provides a lot of the underlying abstractions on the Kubernetes API, but it doesn't have functionality for automatically spinning up a service when it gets external traffic from outside That's something that might need to be added as part of your platform technology, or you may have to kind of code that up as part of your solution set. Other features that are in that group of like not fully supported or not fully included in Knative are things like I guess I kind of said scaling from 0 to 1, but not just one, but scaling up to maybe 100 replicas or however many you need based on the external traffic demands, and then also scaling back down to 0 and idling the service when it's no longer needed. So that's one example of something that is pretty common in functional or function as a service or that platform as a service style solution. But usually that function as a service is a little bit more higher level and a little bit closer to a PaaS style functionality. And Kubernetes is kind of by scope trying not to be a full-blown PaaS. It's kind of leaving those details to be implemented by higher order solutions. So you can get a lot of it via Knative. OpenShift, if you have the Knative or serverless operators installed, OpenShift can provide a certain amount of that. And so we should see some of that in the demo today.
Cool. And I will toss out there. Go ahead, Natalie.
No, I was just adding that the difference, because there was the question, what's the difference between Lambda or OpenShift serverless or Knative? So that bit of Lambda is the function as a service that Ryan was mentioning. And the OpenShift serverless is going to add also that layer with a subcommand inside the KN CLI. So you can, you will do KN FAAS, and you can launch a function from a source code base. You can create a container and running it in a serverless way. So the similar piece to AWS Lambda would be that one. But as Ryan mentioned, and Knative is kind of a backbone of serverless, while function as a service is something on top. But we are going also to put this something on top. And Knative is agnostic, right? It can talk with many function as a service, as a plugin in. We're going to add this bit with KNFAAS to have this function as a service inside Knative.
Cool.
Another detail that has architecturally been kind of moved out of bounds for Knative is the ability to build your source code into a container image. Way early on in the Knative story, that was kind of in scope or something you could do using Knative. Now, a lot of that functionality has migrated over to Tekton. And so you can run your build in Tekton and then have Tekton hand off to Knative to serve up the resulting container image. So we're trying to use the appropriate upstream abstractions with a kind of community of maintainers around it and not duplicate functionality that exists in other parts of the cloud native ecosystem.
Yeah, and just saying there's so many parts and pieces of the cloud native ecosystem. If KNFAS doesn't work, there's probably something else out there that does work for you. Trust me.
Another interesting piece that is really an attempt to align with upstream needs. Knative earlier on, in order to do kind of traffic splitting between multiple Knative services, you would have to install Istio as a requirement.
Right.
Now, a lot of that is kind of behind a compatibility layer where you can plug into Istio and use Istio for traffic splitting, but there's also several other kind of traffic shaping providers. They're working on support for Ingress v2. I think that's alpha or beta currently, but that's in progress. But there's a variety of kind of traffic splitting implementations, and Istio is no longer a strict requirement. You could use it, but it's not a requirement of Knative.
Right, and the name of the new ingress for doing this is Courier. This is the new tool they use instead of Istio. So Istio is not a requirement, and you can use Courier out of the box to have this functionality for getting the traffic inside your serverless application.
Cool. Well, do we have any
Let's
other
dive in.
questions in chat? If not, I'm going to start a screen share. And okay, so hopefully y'all can see a desktop I have opened up I'll post in a link into chat in case anyone else is interested in joining. So we're at learn.openshift.com/developing on OpenShift/serverless. We've got hyphens between that, developing on OpenShift. But you should be able to find it from learn.openshift.com.
Yeah.
We have a whole serverless kind of folder there with a lot of different topics in there. There's an introductory serverless, which is what I'll cover today. And then there are a couple more sections covering Camel K, which gives you some nice extensions to the eventing solutions in serverless. So let's see. This says estimated time 30 minutes. We'll see how long it takes us. And if you notice any issues with the content as we're going through it, let us know. We're constantly in the progress of updating this content and making sure that it is relevant, recent, accurate. This is currently using OpenShift 4.4. for this scenario. So it's not our absolute latest, but it should still cover a lot of the concepts. So I'm going to hit start scenario. Oh, goodness, capacity limit. Let me reload and see. I should have told everyone from the audience to hold off until I get a session. I posted the link too quickly.
I don't think we have that many people in the audience that would make.
Yeah, I got a capacity limit warning yesterday as well on some other scenarios, but then this one magically worked for me. So I guess I lucked out yesterday. Looks like I've got a session available. This does take a couple minutes to start up. The work that it's doing in the background is installing the serverless operator. So this takes a little bit of time. We can jump into, let's see, we may actually have some, we got screenshots here to demonstrate what's happening in the background. And if you're interested in seeing a lot more detail, you can log in with admin credentials and then go and install the operator. So this is kind of the steps you would need to do as an admin in order to make the OpenShift serverless operator available to developers. This is just done once and it's installed in all namespaces. Oh, this is looks like it's just one namespace for this example, but oh no, let's say all namespaces. All right,
but it creates its own namespace for its resources, right? That makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Yep. So another detail I picked up from that OpenShift Commons summary is if you are using a Kubernetes cluster that uses namespaces as part of its role-based access control and part of its multi-tenancy, then Knative works pretty decently well if you're using that type of analogy to do multi-user support. So you can have use namespaces as buckets for your Knative stuff, and then associate people with the RBAC rules, and hopefully that splits up access control in a reasonable way. So we're almost to the end of the install here. Let's see.
Can you, by chance, increase the font size on the right-hand side?
Yeah, let me. Yeah. That's a good opportunity for me to mess with the font while we're waiting here. So eventually this will flip over to ready equals true. It looks like we've got a loop running in the shell here to pull the API every couple seconds.
Yeah.
Next step is to log in as a developer and create a new project. So I should be able to, here we go, tutorial ready. Let's try OC, who am I? Currently logged in as a developer.
Cool.
And OC project. Looks like I'm using the serverless tutorial. This one isn't linked as a clickable step, so it should be already completed for us.
Right.
A lot of these scenario steps, if you click on the text, it'll automatically paste it over into the right and get you up and ready to go. So first command magic. Yeah. So what we're going to do in this section is deploy our first open service, Knative service, not Kubernetes service. So we're kind of reusing the word service, but hopefully we've set the context appropriately. Configurations, revisions, and routes will be set up. We'll scale to 0, and it should automatically scale to 0 when we're no longer contacting the service.
Nice.
So we could see that configurations, revisions, routes, and services are all available on the API. The OpenShift dashboard provides a lot of nice visualization for this as well. We could take a quick look at the schema for, actually this looks like a plain service, but the API version is in serving Knative dev. I was kind of expecting kind service would be the official service resource type, but I think this API version distinguishes it. Cool. So we can run kn is the command line tool that you can use for interacting with all the Knative resources. You can also use kubectl, but kn gives you a lot more specific functionality for Knative.
Right.
So that should create the service.
Here we go. Things happening.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can run this in the background.
I'm gonna try.
There is usually in our presentation we put the difference between what is the difference between writing a service and writing a deployment and other Kubernetes stuff. So usually we present it also as a way to make a shorter YAML file to define multiple things, of course in the serverless way, but it's also a way to have a kind of shorter infrastructure as a code for your services. If the service itself is, as Ryan mentioned, it's a specific API definition for Knative, but under the hood then implements the deployment, the service, the horizontal pod autoscaler. So it's also a way to write less YAML if you want to follow this serverless path. And I might find also one link to this so maybe it's more clear. Let me check. So I can share in the chat. Here we go. Yeah. Cool. Yes, I just shared in the chat presentation we made with Brian in the Cloud Native Italy event. We present in a general way what is Knative. And in this specific slide I link it, there's the reference between a service and what the service does under the hood. It creates the deployment, the horizontal pod autoscaler, the service. So from 70 lines, you come up to 22 lines, which is cool, no? If you want to follow this serverless path.
Nice.
So it looks like we should have our initial serverless solution deployed and available. I ran a curl example command against the resulting auto-generated URL. And we got a response back, and I'm guessing that this first number is probably a hash representing that initial service revision.
Yeah, I think it's like a unique ID for the person, the one. If you hit it again, I bet
do the same curl and I'll get a different
maybe, unless it detects you as the same individual somehow.
I'm not accepting any cookies with this curl.
Right. So that's there you go. See. So are the numbers different? No, they don't.
It looks like the same to me. Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Drop the curl link in chat. Let's hit it and see what happens.
Yeah, but then when I need to scale down to 0, my demo's not going to work because everyone's going to be pinging it.
Oh.
Well,
true.
Anyway,
good point.
There's the URL in chat. We'll see whether my auto shutdown
I'm for
works or not.
But it's still the same like UID string. So I guess it's just unique to the app or whatever.
Yeah, and then I think there's a counter. Yeah, it should be a counter or something.
The counter's me for 4. Yeah. Okay, cool.
So I got 1 the second time I curled it. So I wonder if it already idled and then spun back up or something. If we do OC,
I got 12 now. I just hit refresh.
Okay. OC get deployment. So inspect the route. Okay, interesting. There's a deployment resource as well.
Nice. There's a route list. That's always helpful.
Yeah. So this is hey, nice. Yeah, I'm used to doing OC route list and then having to do a little bit of explaining to upstream users why I'm using OC instead of kubectl. But KN, I have less explaining to do. So KN route list gives you your routes in a very upstream compliant way. We're still using kind of OpenShift terminology a bit, calling it a route. So hopefully we're clear what type of route this is and how we ended up with it.
Natalie, do you mind if I grab those slides and put it in the channel's like speaker deck site?
Sure.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
There are publicly available from.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that like I can point people to it in the future without.
Those content is partially taken from the great William Marquito decks. Adapted for this event. Always great stuff from William.
So it looks like our previous image was tagged Knative tutorial greeter Quarkus was the image tag. Okay. And we are doing a roll forward or an update to go to the latest tag. We could do KN revision list. So now we have a second generation that has recently been deployed. Should be able to rerun the curl command with the same URL. And let's see, is that a different number on there? 845 kind of looks similar to me.
The same. That 8845 end string, yeah, it's the same.
I was kind of expecting that number to change, but maybe it's an ID for the route or something else rather than the revision or the generation.
Maybe,
yeah.
I'd have to look into the source code for this particular example to be sure. The source code is publicly available if you dig into the examples here on Katacoda.
That's the beauty of open source.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we ran the curl. It looks like we've got some traffic there. we could check the number of pods, and it looks like we have 2 of 2 running. So we're scaled up to more than just one, which is interesting. Greeter service will automatically scale down to 0 if it doesn't get a request for 90 seconds. So if you are running a curl or some type of refresh on your browser, if everyone holds off for 90 seconds, I should be able to rerun this OC get pods, and we should see it automatically scale back down.
Cool.
That's pretty cool.
Let's see. Currently at 2 of 2. And it looks like one's currently terminating. So we're already downshifting.
Yeah, nice. So question for after the demo, but I'll ask it now since we're waiting. How easy is it to modernize existing apps to serverless, right? Like what are the constraints that usually people stumble over is a good question.
It's a great question, Chris. I think it's also hard to answer.
No, that's why I'm asking it.
maybe as we said before, don't expect that your application is going to be real time. If you have any real time application, that's not going to work because the scheduler, the internal serverless schedule, so serverless in general has this say paradigm. Your function, your application runs for a limited time, let's say by default 5 minutes or 90 seconds if you don't use it, right? So don't expect your application to be critical or real time. It's just one shot. And if you have this key, if you keep this in mind and your use case can work out to serverless, then to be honest, adapting your application to serverless in OpenShift, it's dramatically easy. It's just flagging in the developer console, hey, my application is serverless, and that becomes serverless. So under the hood, you write the dev console, write the service CR, the service API, the Knative service. So it's very easy to write or deploy an application serverless. It's difficult to understand if your application is a good fit for serverless. And we understood that if your application is actually can work asynchronously, independently, can also be linked on multiple applications, multiple functions. That is good use case. But if your application is long time running, 1 hour, let's say, running application, that you are kind of violating the paradigm. It's not going to work.
Yeah. The biggest thing is like, think of it as, can your application work as like if this then that, like the ifttt.com thing, like if event happens, do thing, event happens again, do thing, another event happens, there's this different scenario now, right? Like you have to kind of break your app down to the point where it can just say, okay, I'm only going to run, and it's only going to take me a limited amount of time to do this one run, and off it goes. Think of it as like the 12-factor app, right? Like, yes, there can be state involved, but it's very much in that kind of like execute and then continue kind of scenario.
Right. Yeah. You absolutely said it. Yeah.
I think part of it depends on how much YAML are you currently dependent on, and how is your app architected. I think, if you've already kind of architected it in a 12-factor style functionality, you might just be able to run a Tecton build and then deploy the resulting image as a serverless resource, and hopefully it just works. If you are very invested in Helm charts or other advanced YAMLs, you might not be able to stuff all of those YAMLs inside Knative. You might need to readapt some of your YAMLs to be Knative. You can use the kn command line to help generate those initial YAMLs. And then you can store those YAMLs in a Helm chart. But Helm doesn't have quite the same support for traffic shaping. So if you're using Helm's kind of roll forward, roll back, it's not a direct match with the functionality that's available in Knative today. So there's no explicit compatibility layer between Helm and Knative, but there is a lot of support for getting a standard 12-factor app to work with very little effort.
Right.
So this section should be just about done. I tried logging into the dashboard using the developer credentials and had trouble finding the namespace. So I'm going to need to test that again. I thought last time I tried it, it worked correctly. So I'm not sure if this is just a bug in Katacoda or something else. But we'll step through the next couple steps and see how far we get. I was able to log in as an admin, but then didn't see a lot of the resources I was expecting to see. So let's see. This next section should cover traffic distribution and blue-green deployment.
Nice.
I'm curious how many folks in chat are really involved from a development perspective, and if so, are they managing their own blue-green deployments, or are they just handing off to a build and CI suite, and then that's the end of the road for them? I know in my past experience, I was generally kind of a developer and a SRE at the same time. Developers in many places I've worked have been responsible for the uptime of their service. And so we were able to roll forward new features to the public. And if we broke something, we would get paged and be expected to roll it back.
Right.
So that's what I'm used to. I'm curious if any folks in chat are just kind of hand off to a pipeline and that's the end of the story. If so, you know, this blue-green may be out of scope for you, but this is really useful from my perspective.
So yeah, folks, if you want to tell us how you're playing apps today, please feel free to drop it in chat, and you know, we can try and see if that could be a compatible way towards Knative.
Most of the traffic splitting that I've done in the past is 100% covered by what's available in Knative. So now that I've seen all the traffic splitting that's available here, I'm kind of curious, like, do I really need Istio? It hasn't been proven to me as a developer that I need all of that traffic splitting support. But I wasn't doing mixing and I wasn't making full use of all the features that Istio tries to provide. So here we can run an update. We're going to set the revision name to Greeter v2 and set this environment key here.
Cool.
The revision list shows we've got a V1 and a V2 available. We can run another update. It looks like we are setting Greeter V1 to current and Greeter V2 to previous, and then setting a latest tag as well. And 100% of the traffic in this case is going to go to Greeter V1. See if I can get a URL to paste into chat here. Oops, copied a little extra, but
no, that's fine.
Hopefully you got the main URL there.
I am 2, and it's still that 88451.
Same one still. Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to figure out what that number is. It might just be auto-generated.
Yeah. So what's cool is I just check the headers on that request, right? So it shows up as it's an Envoy upstream service type, and there is a cookie involved if you want it. And yeah, like this, it looks like it's coming from just any old web server, but it's got a couple extra headers for Envoy.
Okay. Interesting. Envoy proxy. Cool. Okay, I got number 4 in my response here.
Nice. Let me
with
take the I off here. Let's see. I got 5,
right.
6, 7. Oh my gosh.
And it just says hi greeter. I thought that we were setting an environment variable. So I guess we're on V1 currently. I didn't check the response earlier when we were on V2. But you should be able to roll between V1 and V2, change the traffic allocation, and off you go. So Canary releases this was one of the key capabilities that I relied on as a combo developer and SRE. I would always deploy my code. I used to use cookies and to basically do the traffic splitting. And if you were cookied one way, you'd go down one path, and if you were cookied a different way, you'd go down a different path. And I could set cookies on all the incoming traffic. I would have a special cookie ID that I could set just for myself using my JavaScript console or other things like that. And then that would allow me to go down and access a solution that was published, but not given any percentage of the traffic. So that was how I would do kind of canaries in the past. And then I could ping my service, verify that it was running correctly, maybe even run some test automation against it in production to ensure that it was fully functional. And then I'd dial up the traffic once I was somewhat confident that it was working as I expected in production. So this will show you how to step through all of those hoops here.
What's interesting is that together with this, in OpenShift, it looks like we have 3 ways to do A/B testing, traffic splitting, canary. So we have the routing system, general routing system, or then we have Istio service mesh, and we have also serverless. And the serverless one is maybe more smart because your application is not active until you call it. So it's not running. You are saving resources. You are saving your application for consuming resources until you invoke it through a route, through a URL. So maybe this is the smartest way to deal with revision, canary. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool that you can basically always have every version live in the system to some extent, and then update your traffic splitting rules to either expose or hide those services or have them shared behind a unique URL. So yeah, this gives me pretty much all I was hoping to get from Istio without having to take on the added complexity of learning all the Istio CRDs. So I need to do more research into Istio now to see how it compares and what's the potential value for me as a developer. But this has pretty much all I need as far as traffic routing for my basic use cases, at least.
Nice. That's awesome.
So we'll run a couple more examples here. It looks like my console is a little bit slow to respond. I wonder if I can do a reload on this without... No, I don't see a reload button. There's a refresh for the browser side, but let's see. I'm still waiting on something. Let's see if Oh, here, I got my terminal back. All right. Let's see which, see if I have this curl working. Huh.
I apologize if you hear my dog. Sorry.
I can barely hear your dog. It's not at all that bad. It's
Okay, thank you.
yeah. We've got something running here, but I hit some kind of issue with my shell earlier. So I'm not sure how many of these commands actually pasted. Let me see if I can find the example for showing the different, showing the, let's do kn service. Is there like a kn service list?
Yeah.
So it looks like I have a greeter v2. I don't see what the traffic split is, but we should be able to list that.
In revision, I think.
It's kn revision.
Yeah, you should be able to see in revisions. Yeah, let's check.
Let's try that. Cool. Okay, great. So this is what I was hoping to see. We've got a v1 and a v2. Currently, we've got 100% to current, and there's these other tags, latest and previous, that you can manipulate. So more examples here. We're running almost to the end, and I have one more section to go through here. So this is the scaling section. This is going to talk about, or just demonstrate, scaling to 0, why that's important, understanding the grace period for scaling to 0, that's customizable, setting auto scaling strategies, concurrency based auto scaling, a minimum number of replicas, setting up a horizontal pod autoscaler so you can do more advanced scaling. Lots of nice options in this section. And the OpenShift dashboard is going to show a lot of really cool visualizations to go along with this as well, assuming it loads up everything for you. I'm going to give that dashboard one more shot and see if I see any of this content. I'm still getting the catalog and it's saying no workloads found. So I have an odd situation going on with, maybe I'm in the wrong namespace. I think serverless tutorial was
the right one.
Was the right one. That's the one it's claiming to be in from the command line. And I do have resources showing up from the command line. I am confident, though, in new releases of OpenShift should be available in 4.4, but I'm not totally certain. But new releases of OpenShift have some very nice advanced kind of topology view where you can see a lot of these resource types visualized and get a better impression for how eventing is going to connect them together and cause different interactions between these services.
Yeah, absolutely. For instance, if you have a Kafka cluster, you can connect the Kafka messages to your application, just dropping a line from the Kafka event point through your application. Under the hood, there's going to be a Knative eventing API, like the serving, but for events. And it's going to be automatically done by the OpenShift web console. So this user experience has improved a lot, and it's much easier to prepare your serverless workloads in terms of serving and eventing. So reacting to internal event can be a database, can be a streaming platform, can be anything from Kubernetes that can scale up your application.
There's also a wide variety of eventing kind of sources and syncs available via Camel K. I have not learned very much about Camel K as of yet, but I know we do have several learning scenarios focused on Camel K and the additional eventing types that are made available through that solution. So definitely, if you're interested in learning more advanced eventing and integration around eventing, definitely take a look at those follow-on scenarios that come up after this one. Is anyone else currently going through this scenario? Any folks in chat? Let me know if you saw something dramatically different than what I saw when you opened up your OpenShift web console. So I have so far created a new service, set up some max scale, and a couple other modifications. This last example, I think, generates prime numbers, and you can input, I think, kind of a seed value, and it'll tell you what the next, I think, what the next prime is following that.
Interesting.
Careful how big of a number you input.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the Hey tool.
Yeah, let's see. So I have reported a bug about this. Do you see in the console, I'm getting an error message back after running this hey command. And so in this, you could see it says XML version anonymous caller does not have storage objects. I believe that this is actually a bug related to Katacoda. So if you're running this on your own local cluster, you can copy and paste these commands into a local code ready workspaces instance or Minikube or other Kubernetes offerings, rather than just having it paste across into the examples or into the embedded shell. So hopefully, if you copy and paste this into your own cluster, you won't see this error message from the hey command. You will need to install the hey command, I guess, if you don't have it already. But this is actually a error with Katacoda. And I've already reported a bug, so no need to report it. I'll hopefully get it cleaned up.
I need to jump through those. So
yeah. Already done the effort for you.
Awesome.
So that one I was expecting to see an issue there. Okay, prime generator is up.
Just a reminder, we have about 5 minutes left.
5
we
minutes
have a
left.
hard stop for.
Okay. What's the next topic?
Believe it or not, we will be talking more about serverless functions.
Excellent. So, all right.
Yeah, we've got an overview and demo with Nanya Singh and Lance Ball from Red Hat. So yeah, we'll be talking about serverless functions.
Oh,
today.
Nice. All right.
Yeah, so
I enjoy chatting with Lance.
This show ties in very well with the next one. Kind of all about the serverless today.
Save all your really hard questions for Lance and crew.
Yeah, like
next session.
if you want that, like all your questions that we couldn't quite answer, bring it to that one, and you could probably get an answer.
Yeah,
this was a good warm up for the next session, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that should get you through the end of the serverless session. Here, there's several more examples. You can click on the more scenarios button at the end, and that should, let's see, I'm going to go back to the main learn. See if I could find, here we go, OpenShift serverless. So there's a whole section here. There's getting started, and then these other 5 all kind of dive into, or at least 4 of them dive into Camel K use cases.
Camel K is cool. It's cool. Apache Camel is a popular open source project, and Camel K is the serverless version of this project. It's pretty new, but it's having a good momentum because it helped you defining what is called camel routes. So those are routes which are virtual, like an Apache, kind of Apache virtuals, but made with a Camel, with a DSL language that abstracts you for connecting multiple point, multiple source. Can be a database, a queue, and you connect this to another cluster, to another Kafka partition. So it's an abstraction around this eventing part. And it's really cool. I suggest to try it out the scenarios. It's something that is having a great moment. Yeah.
Yeah, no, to be sure. We've talked about Camel K a couple times on the channel. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Well, I posted in one last link to our topic survey. If you have topics that you would like to see coming up, one of our suggestions that we had in there was how to debug and view logs with serverless apps. So we might hit that up in the future, or you can ask the hosts on the next session.
There you go.
But yeah, thanks again for your feedback in chat. Let us know if there are other topics that we should hit on this show in the future. And I think that's it for us.
Yeah. Awesome. Great work today, Natalie and Ryan. Thank you so much for joining us here. Like I mentioned, stay tuned for the next show that's coming up here in just a few minutes. We'll be talking about serverless functions with the serverless functions experts, apparently. Yeah, Lance Ball is a serverless genius here, to say the least. But yes, thank you all for joining, and I will see y'all very soon.
See you next time.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. Bye-bye.